Did I jump scare you? Yeah, I bet I did. You coward. You make me sick.
Hello everyone and welcome to No, This Is Not a Dado video. Today, I'd like to talk about the recent leveling changes that Bungie announced going into Episode 2 Revenant with the new dungeon coming out, and my thoughts on that and people losing their damn minds. For those of you that live under a rock or, have a social life, Bungie announced that they're going to increase the power cap in Episode 2 by 10, specifically the pinnacle leveling cap anyway. So we're going from 2000 to 2010. So in total, we're going to have a power floor of 1900, soft cap at 1950, power cap at 2000, and then finally the hard/pinnacle cap, which would be 2010. Here, I'll put up the article part about that on the screen now. Now, I do want to talk about the side of the endgame player and who this is supposed to be allegedly for, in terms of what it's providing to the game, which is pinnacle cap. So you would think endgame players, right? I personally am on the fence of what does this do exactly? Like, I am an endgame player, and I do think that there should be, in some form, a leveling system or a leveling increase when you go from episode to episode or expansion to expansion, whatever that may be. I think in the right circumstances, that should exist, because any game that has a leveling system of any kind, which in this case, MMO, looter shooter, etc., you should have that kind of progression in the game for the endgame players. That's part of the purpose of the game, to chase loot and to chase leveling for new content. But in this case of the 10 levels, like, why though? You know what I mean? Like, what is the true purpose of this? Because right now, currently in the game, there's really no reason at all to be even at the current power cap of 2000. You don't really need it for anything, including GMs, where you can just go in as far as -40 and be just fine because of, power creep, but that's a whole different can of worms. But right now, there's really no reason to actually be at the pinnacle cap for the game, other than maybe, I don't know, if you like doing solo lost sectors and you want to take less damage a little bit. But even then, that's super niche. So really, my stance is, I don't hate the idea of power leveling and a power level increase, just to, give you something to do if you're an endgame player kind of feel. You know what I mean? The problem is, a 10 increase already doesn't matter, on top of it already not mattering before that. So, what ideally you should have done, if this is, towards endgame players, and everyone's gonna hate me saying this, but it's true, they should increase it by a substantial amount, like 50 or 100. That way, it actually matters, because you want to be up to par with the content in the game. I'm not talking about old content, by the way, like normal raids and all that. That can stay back at whatever level it is right now. I'm talking about, like, new stuff in the future, the new dungeon, the new raid, etc. That stuff that you have, like, a goal to grind towards. Right now, it's just going to be like, okay, well, episode 2 just came out, I'm 2000 power, I'm 10 away from the cap, I literally do not need to do anything because I'm already at a great spot. Yeah, if I get a level or two, I'll take a little bit less damage from, like, a GM enemy, maybe. But realistically, I'm just going to do Consecration Slam or 1-2 Punch or stab them in the face with a Hunter, and they're just going to die anyway. It's not going to mean anything in terms of level. I guess basically what I'm getting at is I'm indifferent to it. I just thought, if they are going to do this, they should just do it in a substantial way instead of a baby bump. Now, on paper, this doesn't seem like a big deal, at least to me personally, but people absolutely lost their minds over this on Reddit, on Twitter, etc. The Bungie forums are probably on fire. People really hated that they announced a power cap increase. Now, for the sake of the argument, I will play devil's advocate, so I'll take the side of those people right now. In this case, I saw a lot of people saying, I don't want a power cap increase, we just did that in final shape. We prefer to do it, like, expansion-wise only, or maybe the leveling system is just dull and they don't want to do it, which is fair. That's fine. That's a reasonable take. I'm not going to argue against that. However, there's also this group of people that take it to an unhinged level where they just start making up scenarios in their heads for this coming out, as if, like, that's the absolute truth and it can't possibly be anything else. For example, a lot of people started saying, oh, this is just a player retention grab, this is the only reason they're doing it, they want to pump their numbers up. And to that, I need to say, do you know how video games work? You think that they want to pump the numbers up by increasing the power cap for the smallest part of the community that would ever want to be the max level in this game, which is endgame players. And by the way, a majority, like 90% of endgame players, no one wants to do that because there's literally no point to being at max pinnacle power, especially now after Final Shape launched and they improved the fire team system. So no, I don't think that they would use 2% of the player, you know what, let's say 10% of the player base, those super hardcore. I'm being generous, there's no way it's 10%, but hypothetically speaking, they would not be like, hey, let's take the 10% of the player base and increase the pinnacle cap by 10 so the super hardcore guys can come back and bring the community up and bring the numbers up so they can go grind out 10 of those levels for absolutely no reason because there's zero purpose to those levels mattering in the game. Now, if they were trying to do what people are saying with player retention and all that, they would do something positive for the majority of the community where, let's say, Into the Light, they brought out Onslaught, it was brand new, people loved it, or even if you just take an old concept with like GMs, for example, and then you bring back a bunch of fan favorite weapons, which we had in Onslaught, and suddenly these guns come back, they're nostalgic, oh, they have new roles, wow, that's a god roll, oh, Edge Transit is now Jesus in a gun, I want that, wait, you can also get it in shiny form, and then it'll be the only gun that kills the Witness solo, that's insane, I want it! That's how you get people back. Kind of similar how they're doing an icebreaker in the dungeon, but that's besides the point. They're not going to be like, yeah, can the 8 people that still care about pinnacle leveling in this game go up 10 more levels and pump the Steam charts? Thanks. Now that rant aside, I do want to reiterate again, if you're just somebody that does not want to do the same dull leveling system over and over again because you've had it for a very long time this way, that's totally understandable, that's reasonable, I got no problem with that. And let's not forget, the fire team system is in the game now, so even if you're somebody that likes to be up to date with the pinnacle cap, or at least be close to it, now, even if you don't want to level through the said dull leveling system, you can just join somebody who happens to be at the pinnacle cap, or near the pinnacle cap, or whatever, and you're just going to get pulled up in level to that anyway. So unless you're specifically an endgame player that wants to do solo endgame stuff, you don't really need to worry about leveling at all, even at this point, unless you're, like, stuck in the 1800s for some reason, then, like, go do the Red War campaign, what are you doing? Now, if you are an endgame player specifically, and you do like to do solo stuff, like Solo Flawless, the new dungeons that come out, which is going to happen in a couple of weeks, well, I don't know what to tell you, but every game does this. Literally every game that has MMO aspects, loot aspects, etc., they all have power cap increases, leveling increases, content difficulty increases, where people have to regrind to get back up to the top of the mountain. And this doesn't apply to just Destiny or just MMOs or just video games in general. This applies to basically anything with competitiveness. For example, not the greatest example, but still an example, I used to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! In competitive Yu-Gi-Oh!, you start at the bottom, and then you get an invitation to Nationals via Regionals or a YCS, and then you go to Nats, and hopefully you top Nats, and you get the top prizing, which is exactly what I did. You know what happens when you get to the top? You restart right at the bottom in the next season. Kind of like Destiny, where things reset, and you climb up again to get to the endgame. In Yu-Gi-Oh's case, it's new cards, new metas, new knowledge to learn, and then getting the invite all over again by competing against other players. Now, in Destiny's case, obviously it's a little bit different. You have power level caps, you have new gear coming out, you have new content coming out, where you have to learn the new mechanics of the game, but the same concept applies. It's the same routine, or the same pattern. New content comes out, higher power cap, go get the new power cap, do the new content. But now, Bungie has changed that because, again, the fire team system is in the game. So if you're somebody that doesn't like doing the power cap stuff more than once a year, you don't have to, and you can still have access to the game by just playing with your friends who happen to be higher than you. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, I understand why there would be some uproar to this, some pushback from the more casual side of the audience, or again, people who just are tired of the leveling system. But I don't know how it got so out of hand and so controversial to the point where people are like, this is one of the worst things Bungie has ever done. Like, really? Especially in the last year, this is one of the worst things that they've done? And then, you know, the other stuff like, oh, this is for player retention and yada yada. Like, come on, man. Like, there's so many things to complain about with this game and recently the company. This is not the hill to die on with some conspiracy theory. Anyway, that's the rant. Let me know what you think about the subject in the comments below. I'm open-minded. I'm not trying to be elitist to a bunch of casuals or anything like that. That's just my 2 cents on the topic. I don't really care about the leveling one way or the other because, like I mentioned, there's no purpose to being at max pinnacle cap in the game right now. So, it's whatever, but what do you think? And if you enjoyed this kind of discussion topic type of video, let me know for that as well. In the meantime, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Goodbye!